What do you think is the place of the youth in the current power play as we gear towards 2027?
So whatever the youths are at a position right now is that they want an option from these two. Because if you look at the opposition itself, it has had the same leaders that they're complaining about. Fred Matiang'i, talking about the violation of human rights while he was a cabinet secretary. There were bodies that were found. Eugene Wamalwa, he was a CS when all the corruption was going on with Uhuru. Talk of Kalonzo, he has been a seasoned politician for over 30 years, but with no effect or change or transformative change that most people have been calling for.
Mark, many youths are thinking, or rather some people have decided that Ruto has just to go home. He is not an option for this country, and he doesn't have the interest of the youth at heart. Do you believe that is true?
No, I don't think that is true.
What makes you think Maraga is better than any other option?
You know, not even just as someone who fights for transformative leadership and everything. I would also say this as a political analyst. I would not say Maraga is better, right? Because, as I've always said, the character of Maraga lacks capability to do what most people are fighting for. Do you think Maraga can actually have the guts to arrest Uhuru Kenyatta? Do you think he can?
I think I've always said, and with a lot of due respect, Maraga is one of the most incompetent people I've really known. You know, the idea of Maraga duly came after the nullification of the presidential election. If you look at from Jomo's day, you know, during Jomo's day, there was even some rumors that he used to bring even cabinet secretaries and cane them in State House himself. And if that such things used to happen, you cannot do that in the today world.
Good evening and welcome to the Power Table. My name is Eugene Kwach, and thank you so much for joining this conversation. Well, tonight we get to discuss another critical issue concerning the issues modern Kenya. Well, Kenya stands at a defining moment in its democratic journey, with the next general elections only a few years away. The conversation shaping 2027 are no longer about the distant future. They're happening now. And at the center of these discussions lies one crucial question, and that is, what is the role of the youth in this? Well, that is a conversation that we are going to have here tonight as we get to chew this into policies that you can actually get to swallow. And of course, we do not do this alone. We do it through lenses of analysts, politicians, and thought leaders. I'm joined by two gentlemen, Mark Ouko. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark Ouko is a youth advisor to the PS of Internal Affairs. Thank you so much
Asante sana
for joining this conversation. And of course, we also have with us Adrian Oluoch, who is a wakili. Thank you so much, wakili, for joining us on this conversation.
Pleasure, Eugene.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the Power Table, where we get to discuss real issues that are affecting the mwananchi. And as we get towards 2027, probably we understand that the youth are a very consequential group going forward. But let's just let me ask this question. What do you think is the place of the youth in the current power play as we gear towards 2027? Where do we stand as the youth? Yes, we've gone for maandamano, protest, but where do we stand, Mark?
Oh, okay. Thank you. You see, you're looking at Adrian.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the question.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of where the youth are placed in terms of the 2027 election,
Yes.
I think the idea of youth has always been has been a metric that existed before,
Yes.
even in the previous elections. It's not that it's the first time, but I think the political consciousness of young people in terms of the things that are happening in the political space has grown exponentially, particularly during the Gen Z thing. I think even more young people are in terms of TikTok, you can get people like even Adrian speaking on political stuff, and people tuned onto. That was something that we hadn't seen in the previous years a while back. But in terms of how consequential these young people are One, they are consequential in terms of their numbers, because they hold the hugest, demographic, or the hugest numerical figure in terms of like the voters group. However, I've often told people that the problem with our youth is that they are extremely disorganized in terms of the way they are moving, in terms of their political willingness. But more so, if we look in terms of acquisition of power, elective positions, there are three things that are critically very important, and I've told young people. And these are the means of access of power. One, it could be around financial capability. Two, it could be around political parties. And the third way could be around popularity, the Salasia way of acquiring power, the Murigi way, the 23-year-old way, which is still very unlikely. So I think the only thing that would make our numbers consequential is organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite much interesting, Adrian.
If you talk about the issue of where do youth stand, it's like you are giving us options, right? You're asking, are the youths with the opposition? Are the youths with the government? Or even the united opposition that you're talking about that has emerged right now? First of all, it is crucial for you to understand the youths who have been fighting for deliberate governance reforms since last year do not stand in either. Why? Because none of them offer any option towards what they were really fighting for. So whatever the youths are at a position right now is that they want an option from these two. Because if you look at the opposition itself, it has had the same leaders that they're complaining about. Fred Matiang'i, talking about the violation of human rights while he was a cabinet secretary. There were bodies that were found. Eugene Wamalwa, he was a CS when all the corruption was going on with Uhuru. Talk of Kalonzo. He has been a seasoned politician for over 30 years, but with no effect or change or transformative change that most people have been calling for. So if you look at the united opposition, the youth do not want to stand with that. And the government, of course, it is as plain as I can put it. No youths want anything to do with this regime. So the youths want an alternative that is better than these two. They want that transformative leader. And one of the things that people are crying about is the accountability that we have lacked for so long as a country. So that is the position of the youths right now. And that is why we are scavenging for an option that is not the government and the opposition. Even as weak as how Maraga is right now, even without any money, anybody is ready to support him. Why? Because we just want a better option than whatever we have had. So that is the position of the youths right now. We might look, like Ouko said, we might look disorganized.
What makes you think Maraga is better than any other option?
Not even just as someone who fights for transformative leadership and everything. I would also say this as a political analyst. I would not say Maraga is better, right? Because as I've always said, the character of Maraga lacks capability to do what most people are fighting for. Do you think Maraga can actually have the guts to arrest Uhuru Kenyatta? Do you think he can? Do you think Maraga has the guts to arrest Fred Matiang'i? Do you think Maraga has the guts to go after everyone who has plundered the resources of this country? The reason why you can say he does not have the guts is because he has not come out clear of his plan to recover most of the money that has been lost in this country. So as an analyst and also as someone who's fighting for great leadership, I would say I would not want to vote for Maraga until I see that come out clearly from him.
But if you said you'd support him.
Definitely, I would. What did I tell you in the first place? That we want an option. Any option that is best for us. That is why you would not tell me I would rather support any other candidate than Maraga. So Maraga has come out as an alternative option. I would not say that he's the fortified leader for the youth to actualize whatever we are fighting for. Okay. Maybe because he lacks the zeal and everything, the demeanor, the standing character, the main character of, like maybe the way Morara Kebe also came out as a president.
Okay. Let me ask you, Mark. Mark, many users are thinking, or rather, some people have decided that Ruto has just to go home. He is not an option for this country, and he doesn't have the interest of the youth at heart. Do you believe that is true? And probably, who do you think is better?
No, I don't think that is true. Now, one about Maraga, I think I've always said, and with a lot of due respect, Maraga is one of the most incompetent people I've really known. You know, the idea of Maraga duly came after the nullification of the presidential election.
But you know, for you to say someone is incompetent,
just a minute. The space in which the space in which Maraga held before was the space of the Chief Justice. Yes. If we were to judge, you know, and I've heard even some of the senior lawyers giving, you know, doing a critique of what Maraga did, the likes of Ahmed Nasir. Maraga is one character who is known for making extremely erratic decisions. He has this liberal mindset of operation, you know, and, you know, causing a lot of drama against the state and all that. But if you were to, you know, do an analysis between Maraga, even with CJ Willy Mutunga, arguably Willy Mutunga performed much better. You know, Willy Mutunga had that binary balance of being a liberal judge and also a conservative judge, and, you know, maintaining the dialogue, although he was mainly perceived to be a conservative judge. About William Samoei Ruto, I want to tell my brother that, you know, this sometimes we can look at this thing about, you know, youths are not with either Raila, either Ruto, and all that in some form of delusionment. But this is the truth. These politicians have a number of youths who are supporting them. Raila Odinga has youths who are supporting him from Nyanza, Western, Coast. And that's why even when there is a clarion call for people to go for demonstrations, there are people he can command within his bases, even within here Nairobi, and tell them do not go for demonstrations. Even Kalonzo Musyoka, there are people whom he commands from his own area, even Rigathi Gachagua. So it is fundamentally not true to say that, you know, these youths do not belong to certain political constituencies. Now, in answering your question, perhaps now finally, this is the thing. The question as to when there was now a huge euphoria, a huge public uproar as to whether Ruto is the right person to be supported in 2027 started when Raila Amolo Odinga joined William Samoei Ruto. And what I've often realized, and this we were discussing with you back then, there are two centers of power in this country. There's one power that hierarchically came from Jomo Kenyatta. This is the central people of power. Then there's the other side which came from Jaramogi Odinga. These two sides of power can never be on the same space. You ask even people from Mount Kenya, what did Uhuru Kenyatta did so extraordinarily bad to them? If it was COVID, it was everywhere. What did he do? It was the moment that he merged with Raila Odinga that they came out of government. Even with William Samoei Ruto, these guys were okay with Ruto till they had whispers Raila is coming into this government.
They drifted.
Yes, they drifted. And I think I do agree with him. Even the likes of Rigathi Gachagua and all the supporters, they were fine with William Samoei Ruto, everything, till Baba came. So it's like they have some Baba phobia. And even if I've been, normally when I'm on an Uber, I normally ask these people, why are you not supporting William Ruto? They start, kuna hii jamaa inaitwa Raira. Raira brought a lot of problems. They call him Raira. So you see, the fundamentalism is that these two centers of power cannot be in the same space. And if Raila leaves Ruto today, those people will be back.
Wow. Quite interesting. So you're disputing what Adrian is saying, that there is a third force. People who are supporting...
You see, about Maraga cannot be elected to become president. He can be made to become president. You know, in politics, it's either you go via the staircase or you use an escalator. Mwai Kibaki was made president in 2002.
Okay.
But we want to change that politics.
Okay.
Someone being made a president. Why should you be made a president?
Because you see somebody like Maraga, he just joined the political space arguably 1 year ago. How will you defeat somebody like William Ruto, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, who have been in politics for over 20 years with the in-root political system? He can only be made president by external factors that determine who becomes president.
So the awakening of the youths is not a matter of how long you've been in politics. If you're someone who's educated and enlightened, and someone who knows your rights as a citizen or your privilege of voting, you do not look at someone's political history or the wealth he has amassed. You look at what work are you doing for us?
Okay.
That is the question we would always ask. You know, the problem with Kenya, you make the issue of political campaigns such a flare. But at the end of the day, people would always ask, did you really work?
Okay.
And that is what is really happening with most leaders. Even the people who really think or look like they're supporting the government, most of them are still complaining about what the government is doing very wrong.
Yeah.
How many youths are out here in the streets saying that they were just paid to attend a certain event? How many youths still complain about the corruption that is going on but still show up at that event? At the end of the day, we will have to question and we will have to want to see what you have done for the young people of Kenya.
Do you think, Adrian, because so many youths have come out revolutionary, like yourself, they need change. Talking of a third force, talking about another force away from maybe Raila, Ruto alliance, and then Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo alliance, and against any other political coalition that will be made. But do you think that the current system that we have allows someone like Maraga or like any other youth who's got has aspirations to become a leader in this country? Does our structure allow such people to easily ascend to leadership positions?
Of course, the political power system would never allow anyone like Maraga, or let alone any good leader who's going to be transformative or change the country to come close to power. That is the political system we have. And that is why, as we were fighting as youths, one of the things that I was crying for the most or hoping for was for us to even go to that state house and burn it down. Why am I saying that? I'm not just talking of it as one objective thing of we are going to do. What I'm saying is that I wanted it to feel like a revolution, a symbolic way of taking power. That was the only way we were going to bring systemic change into the country. But the moment it failed and we started now talking about elections, then definitely we have lost it. So even a person like me who's a youth who's hopeful that maybe Maraga might become president, I know quite well that it would not happen. Because of the political power structure. They would never want anyone close to power who's going to bring real change.
Mark, why? You know you're part of the system. You can tell us why. Why is it difficult for someone to ascend from nothing, even if they have good ideas?
But also just to first of all correct him, such erratic activities normally end up people dying, and there's nothing that really happens at the end of the day, because in politics you can never go against the tide. You burnt parliament, they still steal money there every day. It wasn't an awakening point for them. So burning state house won't be, I don't think it will be so much far-fetched. Even they burnt parliament, but the MPs
so if we
same.
went to state house today and occupied it and burn it down,
No,
you want to tell me that Ruto would still be a president?
That will never happen.
I'm not talking about it not happening. I'm now being delusional.
Why do you want to burn state house?
If it happened, do you think that the president would still fly back into the country telling
why
everyone
do you want to
president?
burn state house?
After people have occupied
But answering
state
your
house.
question,
Yes.
you see, there's that picture that we were discussing with you. One picture showing Jomo Kenyatta, showing Moi, Kibaki, and the young Uhuru Kenyatta in one space. That showing that often, sometimes as we try to go think about, revolutionary and all these things, if it was just merely about ideology, if it was merely about popularity, Jaramogi would have been president of this country. Raila Odinga should have been president of this country. But there is a system that has been built, and this is not just unique to Kenya. Even if you go to Tanzania, there is the CCM system. There's a system that that is built in each country that determines who becomes president. And there's an analogy that was given to Fanya Mambo that you see when Jomo Kenyatta was leaving the presidency in 1978, the person who took power was not somebody outside. It was just somebody who was loitering around the room.
Yeah.
This person was Moi. When Moi was leaving power in 2002, you know, Moi, you are saying we want this entire KANU system to go out. The person who takes power, you know, it's not somebody outside. Just the boys loitering around the room.
Who was the vice
this
president?
this is Mwai Kibaki.
Yes.
When Kibaki is leaving, the person who takes from him is not somebody who is the most popular, Raila Odinga or somebody like that. Those who are loitering around the room, Uhuru Kenyatta. Then from Uhuru Kenyatta, Ruto. Even post Ruto, the boys who are loitering, and I've been even telling one of my friends who wants to be president one day, Babu Owino, I told him, the people who become president in this country are not the revolutionaries. You cannot. The system will not allow you. And you see, in this country, there are five groups of people that determines the person who will become president. One, there's the international community that we discuss. Two, we have the bourgeoisie, the rich people. These are the people whom they can decide, like, we want to cause an inflation in petrol prices. The bourgeoisie, the Mount Kenya people, I'm talking about SK Macharia, to be blunt about it. 3 is the media. 4 is the NIS. And 5 is the military. These 5 groups of people. So if you look in the arithmetics, they are not with you, you can't be president.
Quite much interesting, but we'll continue with that conversation some other time.
Yes.
Let us talk about something, an issue that has been recently talked about a lot, full of controversy, and that is the issue of corruption. The president, during the broad-based meeting, says that these MPs are very corrupt, and then the MPs are now saying, we want the president summoned because we are not corrupt. I don't know what you think about, because in our country, corruption has been a thorn in the flesh. The members of parliament have been accused several times to be corrupt, and actually it has questioned even the independence of the members of parliament, of the house. So there's a question around it, and perhaps let me just ask you, what do you make of the state of corruption in our country, and particularly in the institutions that are supposed to be protecting us or making laws against corruption? Let me start with you, Akili.
First of all, the current state of corruption in Kenya is highly motivated by the president himself. Did you know that? That in this government, the things that holds people closer to the president is the idea that the president is someone who lets people eat. And that is true. That is why people like Adan Duale, people like Kimani Ichung'wah, they would rather do anything, even if it is to lick the floor and say Ruto is right. They would do it. Why? Because the president is someone who lets people eat. And people also in this government know that if there is an architect for corruption in this country, someone who has risen through the ranks through corruption, it has to be the president himself. So, fighting for a corruption when we have a president who has risen through it, it's a fallacy in its own self. And that is why I say people who are politically naive when they were seeing the president calling out MPs, I tell them this is just a narrative. Kimani Ichung'wah going to parliament and complaining that, we are not corrupt. Why is the president talking about this? No. They still go back to State House, still sit on the same table with the president. Kimani Ichung'wah goes and buys 138 million worth of shares from the housing company. I don't know its name. It's IHF. So it's just a crafted narrative on the issue about fighting corruption. But in real sense, it is not even an existential threat to the MPs who are there. But you might also argue that Ruto is also trying to fight bare knuckles with certain MPs that he does not really agree with. But when you talk about corruption, my dear friend, it is a fallacy for you to fight corruption in this government when its top leaders are actually surviving through it.
Wow, quite interesting. Mark, on the issue of corruption, the parliament has been accused, and most people think that the parliament has actually been captured by the executive, and they do the bidding of the executive. What the president says is what he gets. If he asks this, that is what he gets, because almost every MP has been marred by corruption allegation. There are issues of corruption by each member of parliament. He says that all these things we see, these are just narratives, and there is nothing serious. There is no one between the executive and even the parliament who are really intentional and deliberate on killing the threat to our economy, and that is corruption. What do you make?
Yeah, first of all, I think, Adrian, I think sometimes the president also has some a right to respond. So sometimes because he's not here,
Allegedly.
let us not go bare
Allegedly.
knuckles with him.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
So I look at this in two ways.
Yeah.
One, there's the conceptual idea around corruption. The conceptual around idea of corruption, I've always questioned. Do most Kenyans principally hate corruption? Or is it because they're not part of those who are looting? Because normally, even if you see those who are in the political aisle of the opposition, when they are not part of those who are eating, they are very, they are very aggressive around fighting corruption. But once they join those who are eating, but you also see, it's a culture which has been built by Kenyans. You see, Kenyans elect people through handouts and all that. It's a very corrupt system in terms of how Kenyans. Then the same Kenyans are the ones who expect you to be a morally conscious MP when you spent a lot of millions trying to buy them to get into power. But there are two types of corruptions that happens in this country, Eugene. One, there is something called a vertical kind of corruption. And I've even seen some people who have tried to explain it. Two, there's a horizontal kind of corruption. The reason as to why the kind of corruption that William Ruto is within his system is very blatant is because it is a vertical kind of corruption. A vertical kind of corruption, I even saw a senior counsel like Benassi trying to give some analogy around it. A vertical kind of corruption is when a corruption it starts from the top to the trickle down, from status to sugoi. Top bottom. That's why it's very blatant. You can see it all over. During Uhuru's time, there was corruption. You could feel it, but you can't see it because it's very horizontal. It's only for the elites. And this normally happens when a Mount Kenya president is in power. Those who are within the COVID billionaires, there's no money, but you don't see who are people who are stealing it. In Ruto's time, you can blatantly see them in empowerments. So that was happening. Now, two, if you're now looking the context into what the president was saying, of course, maybe there might be a genuine concern by the president. I think as he was saying that, some of these MPs are becoming too much. But let me tell you, see, Junet was talking about the other day that lobbying is an international standard of getting this MP. Sometimes they use diplomatic means, try to talk to you. But if they do not talk, they can't talk to you, we entice you using money. Their NIS reports can be used against you. Those are hook and crook ways. I want to say things which are very exclusive. But now, if you're looking at it in terms of the political sense, I feel there's something happening. And this is my thought. I feel like these people want to get rid of Moses Wetangula. And they're getting a smart way of trying to get rid of him. Because remember, where the yardstick or the rubber hits the road, the person who takes blame, where the buck stops when you talk about the legislative arm, is Moses Wetangula.
Yes.
When you go on the campaign trail, you don't tell them about MPs. Because these people are the ones who are selected. You tell them, Ule Moses Wetangula was not able to, achieve these one or two things. So I feel like there are people who are trying to set up Moses Wetangula. And there are people, the broad-based brothers may not be really happy with it. They are trying to create some space and the collateral damage might be Moses Wetangula. That's my thought politically, where this is heading to.
Yes. Quite interesting. But what really is the cost of corruption? Because you're talking about, it's good you've actually agreed that it's top bottom.
Yes.
Yeah, he agrees that we have a corruption
There's corruption,
problem.
of course. There's corruption.
And he actually says it's top bottom.
Yes.
But for how long
Bottom
should
up.
we actually be in this state? Because the president is saying, let us fight corruption. And yet, as you have agreed, that is part of the system that is actually, and the culture that is contributing to they corrupt us. So what then is the right thing to do? Should he then,
right thing-
should he then be impeached?
The only way you can end things like corruption, things which have had a huge historical background around them, is not around centering around a person. That's why I was even saying that time, Gen Zs don't really care who is the president, as long as they have jobs, as long as they can eat, as long as they have their help in due time. The only way you can change some of these things is a systemic change, you know. PLO Lumumba, one of the most integrous people, was put at ESCC. He was not able to run it because the system was too strong for him. The system couldn't allow him. So sometimes it's not even around the person himself, but the system that has been built to accommodate some of these things. And the power lies in the ballot. I do believe fundamentally the power lies in the ballot. Once we elect the right people from top, bottom, some of these things will end.
Don't you think the youth are contributing to the bad leadership that we are seeing? And do we even see that, will the youth change towards 2027? Or we'll have this conversation, we'll say Ruto is bad, this will happen and stuff. And then in the next general election, because there is what we want, yes, and there is the reality.
Of
We want a
course.
third force, but we have Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. And the alliances around it.
Of course, don't even say that. I don't view it in the sense that the youths are contributing to the rot that we are having in governance.
Yeah.
It's just that the youths are a victim of the indoctrination that has been holding this political system for a very long time. Because come to think of it, how is the political narrative always built when it comes to Kenyan election? It has to be tribal politics, right? But think of the
There was a
indoctrination
change
that
in 2022.
there was no change in 2022 as long as a certain region is organizing themselves under someone, another region is organizing themselves under someone, and they do not even question the MPs that they have, the governors that they have, like it is happening in Nyanza. It is a system of indoctrination. And let me tell you how this system of indoctrination works. They've always tried to tell our people in the rural areas, because environment shapes your mindset, and sadly our rural people are not thinking in a quite transformative way. So they tell you that, you know, even as our Nyanza politicians go back there, they tell you that you need someone from this region to be at the top of the seat so that we can fight for certain interest. You can hear Mbadi also talking about projects that are coming to Luo Nyanza because they're aligning with the government. So they indoctrinate you so much to think that you need to have a king from your region who will fight for your interest at the top there, right? But now the problem comes is when you swear total allegiance to this person, you follow everything that he's doing blindly. That even if this person is going to have the party power to elect governors or to give party tickets to your constituency, you are supposed to just elect this person without even scrutinizing what they're going to be doing for you. And sadly, that is what has been happening in Nyanza. That indoctrination of that Raila is our savior, our national savior, that indoctrination that Kalonzo Musyoka is the national savior for Kamba people, or Joho is the controller of the coast. That is what has been happening. So the moment you are indoctrinated to think that way, you are only thinking of Raila Odinga. You're not thinking that the governor himself has over 30 billion that he's supposed to be delivering to you. You're not thinking that the member of county assembly is supposed to be lobbying for certain policies that is going to be helping you in your ward. So we are victims of that indoctrination. The moment we start to awaken and enlighten as youths, and we start to now see things differently, and we ask ourselves, why is it that you're forcing me to just align with my tribe? The moment we start questioning this, we do not now become the perpetrators or the aiders of how this system is surviving. And that is what we are fighting for in this Gen Z movement. In fact, I say the most proudest of thing that we have done as young people, we might not have gone to State House, we might not have taken Ruto away, but there is a certain awakening that we have instilled in the young people of Kenya. We have made them to think otherwise. Even the people who used to say Raila Baba have started thinking otherwise. We have made them to question the political system that has controlled us for a very long time. And that is one thing that I'm very proud. So we are still far away from that indoctrination by our politicians, but we have made considerable change, especially we young people.
Wow, quite interesting. Let's also move to another issue. Mark. And this is what CS Mbadi has actually said about our economy. And because you realize that the biggest issue that we've had is on our economy. Either people are crying unemployment, high cost of living, and so on and so forth. CS Mbadi said that actually economy is doing well, it's doing very wonderful. and actually he said this today. And I'm just wondering, because you see, you can actually maybe tell us a bit about how wonderful the economy is doing, because some people are still crying that there's a lot of issues that actually we have. If you look at the issue of unemployment, there seems so many people who have been unemployed, creating job opportunities. What is really the government doing about around this? I mean, which ties have we made so far? Why would the CS say that we're doing well?
Yes, I think when the CS speaks and says that we are doing well economically, I think he tries to look at, the traditional economic metrics that would say that, a country is doing well, such as, our debt ratio, the debts that we all say certain countries, so if our debt levels have gone down, looking at our GDP, the tax inflations and all those kind of things that, would then be an economic indicators to indicate that whether an economy is growing well. Say, for example, we had a debt level of, say, 1.3 billion, some of the sort, and has been reduced by half. He will use such metrics. But you see, for the common mwananchi, the biggest problem that we have, I think, economically right now is the issue of, circular flow of money. For the common mwananchi, if that circular flow of money is not between us, then we are like, okay, you have all these indicators showing you that the economy is doing well, but for the common mwananchi, what fundamentally matters to them is that money actually getting to them? Now, in terms of, you say, unemployment, you see, one of the delusional things that I've heard about people saying is that, let us just create jobs. Like, let us just give these young people jobs. These things don't work that way, that, we just employ people and all that. No. I think it all goes back to the systemic idea that I was talking to you about, right? For example, if we are to build a system within the health system that could now accommodate, say, even 5,000 new or 10,000 new people, there's needs to be a mechanism around how do we absorb all these unemployed people, rather than just saying that, and I think some of the programs that I think the government has done in terms of helping the young people, we have the Nyota program where the people who are there, we have the Wezo Fund, we have the Hustler Fund, some of these, cautionary measures that the government is putting while it's developing a grander scheme. Even the housing program, there are many people who are employed with it. Some of the prior programs that government had, such as the Kazi Mtahani, could still be brought back. So the idea of unemployment can all be just solved in a twinkle of an eye, that today the president decides, all these thousands and millions of people who are not employed will put you somewhere. It will be a complete system fallout. So I feel there is a huge contrast between what government thinks is a growth of an economy versus what the common mwananchi. Because if I'm sleeping hungry today, when you tell me our debt level is down, all these things you're saying, the taxation level, for our exploitation, whatever, these things don't matter. I'm hungry today. That's what matters to me. That circular flow of money, I think that's what matters to the common mwananchi most. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you look at the economy as it is. How will you judge the state of our economy? And is there evidence to really prove that our economy is doing better?
And it's good that Mark is talking about, there are certain things that mwananchi wants to see, the simple language or articulation of, or a view of how our economy is doing well, for them to be, resonatable with whatever is going on. And that is true, because the things that would make our economy prosper are very simple questions that we ask, right? Why are we having a very huge amount of money that we're using on expenditure? When people make noise about 890 million being used on revampment of the State House, or a certain allocation that seems so absurd in a certain government agency, they're very quite simple questions. But why is it that the government is not solving that simple question regarding the issues of our economy? Because definitely the amount of money that we're even spending as a government or misspending is so much that it can even support most of the sectors that we are really crying, our agricultural sector, our manufacturing sector. And aside from that, if you look at our economy is not doing well. Even the technocrats of economy knows it quite well. If you look at even an issue of the stability of our own currency, you understand whatever even the central banking is doing. They decided to buy up almost every dollar from the people so that they can hold a certain reserve and take certain cautionary measures. But in the end, in about 5 years, would be seeing tragedy when it comes to the stability of our own currency. So even the issue of about CS Mbadi talking about our economy doing well, our economy is not doing well. We have not solved the issue of our debts. We have still increased the number of debts that we are taking. And the number of debts that we are taking, we are not still utilizing as it is supposed to be done. So our economy is not doing well.
And actually, that will beg the question. Because I want us to talk about another issue, and that is on the Constitution. Because actually, the Constitution was promulgated on 27 August 2010.
Yeah.
And then the president has actually allowed a holiday. Though it's a working holiday, people are still working. Like, I don't know how.
I guess it's just working. I don't know if it's a holiday. There's no word there's no holiday in the memo.
No, there's no holiday. It was actually indicated it's still a working day.
Yeah. So working day is still but recognized as a Katiba day. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, because you see, we've had the Constitution, and let me say 12 years, because since 2013, when the first election that was to effect Katiba, the new Katiba, you look at the 12 years that we have had the Constitution. What has really changed? Maybe economically, probably, because one of the key issues probably that the people that came up with the Constitution was to better the lives of the people, and somehow economy was to be there. You look at the justice system. How do you assess these 12 years with the new Constitution? My good.
Yeah, in assessment of the Constitution, these are my thoughts. One, I think over time that the consciousness around how the jurisprudence system within our country works has grown, and I think this consciousness might be brought by certain factors that are coming into the contemporary world, such as social media, etc., etc. Because look, there are certain things that were being said on the Constitution, such as the right of expression, the freedom, all these kind of freedoms that were not explicitly or the consciousness of the people around such kind of rights were not so high like it is today. Like, for example, perhaps in the previous regimes, it was very easy to come and easily abduct somebody and go with them. I'm giving a more reason, something that we can all resonate with. But in the today world, it's not that easy to do that, because the constitution itself doesn't allow that. It's something that has been within the Constitution. Is that our consciousness around it was not so high in terms of our freedoms. People knew, even the other day I was seeing some documentary about BBC. Some kids who are being child labeled. All these rights have been existing in terms of the letter, but I feel like our consciousness has been growing much better. I feel like in terms of our political framework, there's need to do much, especially around the idea of inclusivity. I think it's something that our Constitution, we need to work around the constitutional framework much better. But generally, I would say our consciousness around the understanding of the Constitution has grown. The only thing that I do feel like, most Kenyans do not respect the spirit of the Constitution. Because if most people are respecting the spirit of the Constitution, simple things such as traffic laws, people could obey them. And I think even this goes even up to our political class. Yeah. People do not respect the most basic things that even are on our Constitution.
Okay. What do you make of our Constitution, and how do you assess how it has led us throughout these 12 years. Maybe look at the judiciary, how has the parliament evolved, how has even the executive evolved, and the key issue that has affected the country since independence. This is the issue of economy. Have we really achieved anything economically?
So, when you look at constitutions, there's a reason why you even call the constitution the new 2010 constitution. Our constitution is still new in its own sense, 10 years, right? But when you're assessing how we have improved with that new constitution, you look at what is it, the focal difference that we've had between this new constitution and the constitution that we had before. So there are two key important things. Number one is Chapter 4, which is the Bill of Rights. And number two is Chapter 11, which is devolution. So in the old constitution, we never had the concept of adopting the universal human rights and making it come out very clearly. But in the new constitution, we had it come out so well on the issue of Article 45, rights of an arrested person, right to protest and everything. It was not quite put out in the last constitution. So it came out in the new constitution, and it has worked effectively thanks to the civil societies that you have had, and there's been an enlightenment of people knowing about their Bill of Rights. But now, the problem comes to devolution. Devolution holds basis of our economy. It's a fundamental part in our economy. The reason why Kenya introduced devolution was to solve the issue of an equal distribution of resources from the state. But after the promulgation of the constitution, what has devolution done for the people of Nyanza? Devolution has created some of the richest politicians that we have had ever since the promulgation of this constitution. People like governors alone have even become wealthier than even cabinet secretaries who served even before the new constitution itself. So if you look at devolution, devolution has failed immensely. Because the people who introduced devolution, they introduced it as a concept whereby these counties were supposed to function as an independent entity, to realize their own potential. And also on top of that, they made sure that they would entrust these people with a certain amount of money so that they do not complain about an equal distribution of wealth, of resources, not wealth. So devolution has failed because if you look at the amount of money that the government has spent, trillions of Kenyan shillings in counties, it is not measurably seen. Look at the northeastern counties. They're still grappling the issue of water. Look at counties like we have Nyanza itself. We still have an issue with our roads. So the concept of devolution in our new constitution has to be relooked. Do we have too many counties? And how can we create an independent way in which counties can at least fulfill their own economic needs and also solve the issue of the entrenched problem of corruption that was unfortunately carried down from the national government to the devolved government that we're having now as counties. So that is the problem that we're having. When we look at the concept of separation of powers, I've heard you mention about our judiciary, our parliament, and also our executive. We are still grappling a problem. Why is it that the fact that we introduced the issue of separation of powers, that these government entities are supposed to be functioning quite independently, why is it that we still feel like the executive has so much power over these entities? What is it that we're doing wrong as a country? That whatever happens in parliament is highly dictated by the president, that to the point that even our MPs can impeach a deputy president without clear grounds. So it shows you that we're still having a problem with the separation of powers. Our president has too much powers.
What interesting. Let me bring you in, Mark, because the issue of state capture is an issue that you've talked about for the longest time. And even during the time that we did have the new constitution, there was state capture. A number of times, look at Moi's regime, look at Kenyatta's regime, so many people died. And some of these deaths, now we're talking about the Gen Z, actually some of them being murdered. in the previous regime. Some of them actually were found in River Yala and so on and so forth. So the people that speak against the government, some of them are lost. And there's so many issues actually, because he's talking about separation of powers. And yes, the parliament has been accused a number of times. It has been captured. That's the bidding of the president. Would we, by any chance, is there better days in the future, or probably it truly just be the norm?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I feel like the way in which the state operates has explicitly been how do I say it? It's becoming much better, and I feel like if you look at from your Jomo's day, during Jomo's day there was even some rumors that he used to bring even cabinet secretaries and cane them in state house himself. And if that such things used to happen, you cannot do that in the today world. If you look as during
He used to cane people.
yeah, he used to cane people. It's the people who have been around the state will tell you about this. If you look at during Moi's time, you can be a cabinet secretary or a principal secretary without any grounds. So at 7 p.m. you are taking your meal somewhere at some hotel and you announce that you have been impeached from that power. So I feel like this idea of state capture has, the idea of how strong it is over the years has been declining, because some of these things, like even for example abduction, these are things you could not even discuss during Moi's time. During Moi's time, it was a taboo to be discussing about the president. The president was so revered in some sense during coming Kibaki's time, Uru's time, and Ruto's time. So I feel like over time it's becoming better, and it's becoming better particularly because of the consciousness of the people. Over time, people are realizing, no, such things should not be happening. We have the right to discuss such kind of things. Even my friend here, like Adrian, imagine doing TikTok during Moi's time. Are you serious? There's such things could not be allowed to do, but we are becoming better over time. Even during Uru's time, you couldn't do explicitly what we are seeing most of young people are doing currently, and I feel like gradually we are becoming better. But as I told you, the first and foremost most important objective of any government in power is always political stability. That's the truth. Before health, education, all these things, for government, is political stability. So government will always do anything to ensure that there is political stability in the country. So you see, the interest of the state is always more important than the interest of an individual. So if Rigathi Gachagua is a thorn to the flesh to the state, he will be removed. He was not removed by William Ruto. He was removed by a system that is existing within the state.
But talking about political stability, why is the government fighting for political stability? Can I tell you why?
Because you see,
let me tell you why the government is fighting for political stability, or the concept of peace that they are trying to manipulate us with.
They should not fight
It's
for
because
political stability.
they want to steal in peace.
No, we shouldn't.
That is exactly what happens.
No.
And I tell people that.
That is too far-fetched.
And I tell people that.
Look at countries such as South Sudan.
Let me finish
Somalia.
that point.
Okay.
I tell people this, that the amount of money Kenya is losing by that concept of peace is so much that it is better for Kenya to fall under political instability or violence for a whole year, but we solve that issue of corruption or the money we are losing per day. Imagine a country losing 4 billion shillings per day. The other day, even Mudavadi would agree with people that we're losing over 3 billion Kenya shillings per day through corruption. Do you ever imagine what a billion shillings can do to our nation? The problem is that we do not really quantify this amount of money. That's why we just see a billions and it brushes through us. So the government is fighting so much and creating that manipulation that, if you guys go to the streets, we'll look like Sudan, we'll look like Somalia, we'll look like these other countries. But the concept of that is that they want to steal in peace. And the only reason I ask some of people alleging that is that, why don't you look at the countries who have been successful through revolution? Why do you just want to compare us with the countries that do not actually fall quite well?
Oh, quite interesting. is saying become
You see, let me just comment on this before we move
so
on
it's
the other.
political
This-
stability for peace and so that they can still at peace.
You see, government is normally put on trial. These things that you see as demonstrations and all that, that is not what I mean by by political stability. These are small things that happen every day. When you see doctors protest and all this, these are things that government faces everywhere. What I mean by political stability is that government reacts to the political culture that has been built in the country. The political culture that has been built in the country is very perceptive. How? If today in the cabinet we do not have a Somali or somebody from Northeastern like Aden Duale, the people from Northern Eastern will feel they're not part of this government. And even when you start fighting one of their own, they'll start saying, Apana, you are not fighting the Somalis. It is a political culture that has been built. The people from Mount Kenya, there are people who do not even care about those things. They're just saying, after Rigathi Gachagua was removed, the Mount Kenya people were removed. So it is that political culture and perception that government reacts to create stability.
Now, let's talk a bit about Rigathi Gachagua as we come to the end of this conversation. Because Rigathi Gachagua was outside the country to visit the States. And then Rigathi Gachagua came back. And there was the king is coming back and so on and so forth. And first of all, there's a lot of conversations around the king is coming back. Permit me to ask you, what do you think was the intention around all the razzmatazz we saw and all the people around the airport, and did they really achieve what they wanted to achieve in the beginning?
No, they didn't achieve what they intended. You see, some of these things are normally a kickstarter to the campaign mood towards an election. It's like, for example, the Raila when you away time, it was a kickstarter. The BBI thing was a kickstarter for the 2022 election. They are normally pivotal points that are normally a kickstarter to election. So they thought it would be a huge thing that will now set the country on a campaign mode, but it didn't achieve that. But in terms of Rigathi Gachagua, there are three things that allow me to say, perhaps also because of time. One, the problem with Rigathi Gachagua, he depends merely on his popularity to survive in the political game, and that is a mistake. And it's a mistake that I'm seeing even people like Bob Owino and Edwin Sifuna are doing. As a politician, the only thing that will guarantee your long-term sustainability is building a system that will work for you. The only reason why Uhuru Kenyatta was not able to impeach William Samoei Ruto is because William Ruto had over 100 MPs on himself. How many MPs did Rigathi Gachagua? He was fighting everybody and everywhere. So one, Rigathi Gachagua does not have a well-connected political system within the political class and even grassroots mobilization that will do one for him. Secondly, I feel like Rigathi Gachagua has poor organizational skills. He normally puts the fight where it does not matter. During his impeachment period, he was so focused on getting the most, expensive lawyers like Kenangwa and all these people. But where the fight matters was getting the MPs where he did not put the fight. Thirdly, I think the intent of Rigathi Gachagua, his most important thing, I feel like Rigathi Gachagua knows William Ruto is going to come back. Even him, he knows that. I've heard him and I've tried to read his mood. Rigathi Gachagua wants to just come with Mount Kenya to the table. That is his most spoken point. And that's why he's not even agreeing with people like Uhuru Kenyatta and Justin Muturi, because he wants DCP to be the most dominant party in Mount Kenya. And post and pre-2027 election, that becomes his bargaining power. It's all about interest.
About the man Rigathi Gachagua.
It's all about interest.
What do you think about the person of Rigathi Gachagua? Because yes, we cannot wish him out of the politics of Kenya, just like Raila Odinga and any other political figure. He came back to the country. He believes that there is something he wanted to achieve, but they didn't achieve. But even going forward, what is the intention of Rigathi Gachagua? He was an impeached person and cannot run for president, if I'm right.
Yeah, you're very right. In fact, when it comes to the political mountain, Rigathi Gachagua has reached his peak. Rigathi Gachagua cannot do anything better than being a deputy president. That was his end. But the concept of power is also not just occupying an office. The concept of power is to stay as relevant as possible and to stay as influential as possible. So that is why I keep telling people that Raila is the most powerful leader that we have had in Kenya. Not because he occupied any political seat, but because he managed the art of staying relevant and having the influence at the same time. So Now that Gachagua has reached his peak, he cannot go anywhere else. We understand quite well Gachagua cannot become president.
But he desires.
But even though he desires,
No.
the concept of becoming president is already established in Mount Kenya, that it is not him. So what happens is that he's not influential. He's trying to be influential right now. How do you become influential at a certain region? You offer people an alternative to their problems, right? You give them a political party. And in fact, it is through majorly a political party, like what Raila has consistently done with ODM. So Gachagua is offering the Mount Kenya people an alternative by crafting the narrative that the people of Mount Kenya have been left apart in this government and they have been oppressed, unlike other governments. So that has made UDA become very unpopular in Mount Kenya. What does he do? He comes up with it's DCP, right? He comes up with the DCP. But when he comes up with DCP, his major aim is not becoming president. His major aim is to getting into the bargaining table. Because what matters when it comes to any election period or any coalition formation is how strong and formidable is your party. When you have a party that has even 3 governors from Mount Kenya, 15 MPs from Mount Kenya, you are definitely a formidable force when it comes to the elections. And that is what Rigathi Gachagua envisages when it comes to Mount Kenya politics.
Maybe Gachagua can become president.
No, I don't think he can become president. You see, Rigathi Gachagua, what I do not agree with you, Rigathi Gachagua is very influential. That's why people talk about him everywhere, law 7 of power, 48 of power. The only thing is that the people do not perceive him as somebody who can become president. They perceive him as a kingmaker, somebody who can persuade the region to vote in a certain direction, but not particularly for him. I think he's more of a kind of, I don't know, Matiba, I don't know whom he's more whom he can be translated to. But there's one important thing that also, Eugene, that Gachagua is not realizing. There's the cultural aspect. You see, the kind of politics that Gachagua wants he's doing, majority of supporters do not believe in that kind of politics. And let me be blunted. Kikuyus don't do that kind of politics. There is no Kikuyu. The average Kikuyu cannot leave his business to go and run and see, or organically go and see somebody in the airport. Luos can do that. So there's also the cultural aspect that the majority of people who are his followers do not fit into the kind of politics he wants to do.
Yes, he wants to. And in fact, you've asked clearly, why can't Gachagua become a president? It's because of his appeal. For you to become a president in Kenya, despite the fact that you're having support from your region, there is a certain kind of national appeal that you have, a national appeal that you have. And the same goes to William Ruto. Yes. You remember there was a time when William Ruto was such a very outspoken leader, and he used to even insult people, talk something, something bad about leaders. But it reached a certain point when he wanted to become a president. There is a certain way he carried himself. So we are lacking that from Rigathi Gachagua.
Quite much interesting. Well, we've come to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining the Power Table. As your closing remarks, the opposition says that it is just one term. And that is the agenda for now. That is an agenda enough. One term. Is that an agenda enough for the youth? One term.
My agenda has never been one term. My agenda has always been revolutionary. That is something that is worth to fight for as a leader. But if you're talking about going into an election system that is controlled by the state, there is nothing we are fighting for there.
In my own view, as I've told people, I don't think there is anybody who will have the way, how do we call it, the power to actually fight William Ruto in terms of the system, reliable finances, a lot of these factors. I don't see anybody who can win against it, not even Raila Amolo Odinga. The only way William Samoei Ruto can be defeated, he can only be defeated in the Moi way, where it is not about a person, but it is a revolution. It is a clarion call. It's like the way Kibaki was made president. But the people forget about all these people. They surmount some huge, it's like the finance bill. You create a huge wave that the person has to submerge to whatever you want them to do. But finally, I will say this, Eugene. I have done a lot of analyzation, and I have still concluded the person who will become president of the Republic of Kenya in 2027 is William Samoei Ruto. Of only this one mere fact, even if Raila Amolo Odinga leaves him today, this is what is happening. The small marginalized communities are politically growing hate against the Mount Kenya people. And these small communities traditionally used to vote for Raila Odinga, the Kambas, the Kisii, the Luyas, the small troops. But right now, the only alternative they have is electing William Samoei Ruto. They can't vote for Raila. They can't go for the Mount Kenya people. The only alternative they have is William Samoei Ruto. There is no way when you have Senator Methu saying that the developments should not be going to Homa Bay because the Homa Bay people do not elect them, then you come and tell them as united opposition to vote against William Samoei Ruto. It won't happen.
Wow. Thank you so much. I wish I would have asked more questions around that,
Yes,
but
because of
we
time.
short of time.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, gentlemen, for accepting my invite. Wakili Adrian Oluoch,
Such a pleasure to be on the
and
show.
of course, Mark Ouko.
Yes,
I'm wishing you the best.
yes.
Be a PS yourself or a CS,
Asante.
and a CS minister. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in to the Power Table. This is where we get to discuss, delve into discourses that matter to yourself and to the people of Kenya on issues, politics, governance. And these insights are through the lenses of different various stakeholders, from politicians, top leaders, economists, and them. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. My name is Adrian Oluoch, and good night.